All right, Ian. The podcast rolls on. We're 349 episodes into the sucker, and this might be the most significant segment we have done in terms of potential effect on video games present and the future in terms of the industry, historical avenues, preservation. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not trying to have a dramatic build-up, but Sony, one of the three major video game console manufacturers left on the planet, if you don't count little boutiques like Playdate or Amico,
Evercade.
they decided that
Amico.
a little levity to this horrible, long subject. They announced that they will be ending physical disc production for new PlayStation games starting January 2028. They announced that July 2nd. That's almost 2 weeks into us. And obviously, the wasn't a positive reception by and large to that.
No.
I don't think, besides a few people that I will try to be calm when I discuss those opinions, besides a few people, it was not met with any sort of positivity. Because we always discussed sort of the point in time with video games slowly getting to this point. I don't have the Blu-ray with me. I don't want to bring it up this early, but I even helped produce a documentary discussing this very thing about the end of physical media of video games and what it means for the future of the industry and everyone else affected by it. It's a topic that's very important. It's a topic that's obviously salient, and it's a topic that's going to have huge ripple effects far beyond what I think many people have discussed the past couple of weeks that we're going to talk about. So my immediate reaction was, wow, this early? Really? Already? Now? You're doing this? You're not waiting for PS6? You're not waiting for PS7? You're just going to say, right now, pull the Band-Aid off.
Well, I will state that if physical disc production is ending in January 2028, that they may be trying to time that with something like that. But with the cost of technology, I also would not be surprised if they tried to extend out the PS5.
I was going to say, I don't think PS6 is coming out in a year and a half. I don't think so. I don't think there's been enough, which we'll talk about, enough investment into the PS5 in terms of games to make it worth a PS6.
Nope.
So, yeah. So, I was, obviously I was disappointed. I don't want to say sad, don't be dramatic. But I just want to try to get a lay of the land of, like, the opinions out there. And obviously you have all these organizations and folks, giving statements about how bad it is for preservation, for history, for game development, for the smaller guy involved, just the gamut. I put out, I don't want to call it a statement. I don't know if you saw what I said, whereas I should have had it up and ready. I basically said that I was dumbfounded by some of the opinions that it wasn't a big deal, that things will go on and continue, like, oh, this is not a big deal, it doesn't really affect me. It affects you whether or not you buy physical games, just digital games, a combination. This will affect you 5 years from now, 15 years from now, 30 years from now. This will affect you in a myriad of ways that hopefully we do not meander and go off the tangents too much, that we will try to break down for you how exactly this is going to affect you.
I'll start first and say that I think, and I understand people's concerns here. I'm glad that people are more aware these days of preservational concerns. But from a preservation angle, this is the one area that is, I'm going to be honest, not particularly affected. And the reason is because games have largely been released incomplete on discs. And games have existed kind of in a nebulous state where what you would get on the disc would no longer necessarily be helpful for preservation. And preservationists
for installation and play,
yes.
You mean?
And preservationists like Frank Cifaldi have been, working within constraints that are kind of like disc-based games have gone away for a while. What is going to hugely affect, or what is going to largely be affected by the elimination of disc-based games, physical releases, is you have suddenly destroyed you've ruined access to games. You've ruined the secondhand market. That is how, as gaming gets more and more expensive, is the only way that some people can afford to play games. You're ruining the reach that smaller publishers and smaller distributors get with a physical release of a game. There are a lot of people who play on consoles, and this is less so on PCs, but if we're talking the console space, there are people who play consoles specifically because there's historically always been an option to own a physical game. I know lots of people who wait for physical releases of games to come out before they purchase that game. Some people, when you go to a convention, there are people who are introduced to new games by seeing copies of that game available for sale.
I was going to talk about that as an entirely different subject later, but you can talk about it now.
You can. It eliminates the ability to trade a game, because while some companies have made some inroads into how to handle digital games, Nintendo does so with the key cards. Basically, you can trade a digital file to someone, and it basically you can swap licenses and get them back and forth. Sony has made no inroads in this area that I'm aware of. So you're cutting out access. You're cutting out any sort of community-based grassroots trading. Because of this, you are hampering word of mouth, and it's shrinking the video game. How do I want to say
cultural.
By doing this, you are shrinking the accessibility and the availability. And when you couple this with something like the rising price of games, it's becoming much, much harder to not only be able to enjoy those games, but also for developers and publishers who are making games to get that game out there.
Sure. So why is Sony doing this right now? Let's not bury the lead. Obviously, they are struggling this generation, rising costs of consoles. They have fuck all when it comes to exclusives. We talked about it in the podcast last time. I looked up the Wikipedia, and I was shocked to see 25 games listed as PS5 exclusives, and of those 25, like 3 or 4 aren't even out yet, like the Wolverine game. So we're talking...
Yes.
Even the little Duck's upset.
He's done. He's finished.
The Duck's done.
He's done.
So we're talking a console that's been out, Ian, for 5 years, that costs several $100s now, that has 20 exclusives to this point on it. So Sony's sitting there like, okay, we have a lot more competition now. We're now losing money or making nothing on consoles, probably less than before. This might be potentially the last real console generation, which they're kind of forcing in terms of all this stuff. So what do? We have to maximize our profits by cutting out the middleman. We control the means of production because they own the Blu-ray technology. They own all the fucking plants in the world. They own the Blu-ray printing and all the technology, the patent on and all that. So we're going to control that, but that's not enough, Ian, because before you had to pay out a royalty every time a disc was pressed for your boutique game, your AA, your single A games. That's not enough. Now for the AAA games and everything going forward, we want to cut out the middleman. We want to cut out Walmart. We want to cut out Target. We want to cut out GameStops for their 15% or so they're making on this stuff, or 20%. You see around 15 to 20%. They want to keep all the profit, squeeze it all out. Squeeze it all. We want it all right now. So then our profit margin goes up the next year is just because on that alone. And for games like, for example, GTA 6.
And the goal here is to create a perpetual customer, not just within the Sony ecosystem, but to create a perpetual customer of any game that they enjoy. Because what we have seen as remasters and remakes come out is we see the delisting of the original versions of the game. And if you've eliminated physical media, even if that physical media is just a disc with a key on it that unlocks a download or something for you, you have that. You could take it to a backwards compatible system. As I said before, you could trade it to someone. Now what you have is, say you like I don't know. Haiku Brothers, the fun new poetry game.
Super
from
Haiku
Sony.
Brothers.
Super Haiku Brothers, the fun new poetry game from Sony. Say you really like that, and you have it on your PlayStation 5. Well, PlayStation 6 comes along, they can decide that they just don't want to sell that version to you, and if you really want to play Super Haiku Brothers again, you can get the remastered version or the remade version, and they can take the old versions off of it. You are completely under the control of what they give you. Your ownership is truly gone.
Sure.
Now, for some people, like myself, I have gone mostly digital for a long time. That is my choice, and I have understood the risks. But I had the choice to make, and now people do not get that choice.
And you saw the disadvantages of digital only.
I'm aware of the disadvantages of digital. I don't like them, but for my type of games that I play, independent games and things like that, if I want to talk about them, I don't wait for a physical release. I get them, and I have eaten crow many times because I have, I've had to rebuy a game or something like that because I have. But the difference is I had that choice to make. And I understand people who make that choice, whether it's for space-saving concerns or someone has enough money that they don't have to worry about reselling games. But that does not make it good just because I have already made my peace with the demise of physical media.
Sure. Because there's some people that will only buy physical games still.
Right. And there are systems that I like to buy physical games for the Switch. If I get a Switch 2, I like to buy physical games.
I only have physical Switch games.
I like to buy physical games for my portable system.
I'm sorry. I only have physical Switch games where I'm given the option to buy them physically, which we'll get into.
Why don't you roll right into that? Because we're going in that direction.
So one of the first of all, I want to get into the pro digital only people. There's not a lot of you out there. There's not.
I'm not pro digital. It's simply how I purchase my.
You're not pro digital only,
right? Right.
Because I did see someone. I don't want to call them out. There was a tweet where it was like, well, all the DVDs from 25 years ago don't work anymore. So like it's
lies,
and they got fucking dragged like they should because I want to pull up my 2600 games from 77 that still work. Like if you take care of physical media and you have hardware that runs it, we still have NES games. 99.9% of them run fine and they're 40 years old. There's discs that come out in the 90s, CDs from the 80s, if you take care of them, are still good. Yes, you get the one-off weird prints or whatever that are bad, but Ian knows, you take care of this shit, it lasts. It lasts.
I have a ton of DVDs that I still watch. Like
DVDs are stored in cases so that they don't even hit the plastic. They're like raised up slightly, and Blu-rays, that's not a concern. The other thing I've seen about, well, what if your collection catches on fire or stolen? Like we're talking about the thing that's like 1 in 10 million, where it's like, okay, we'll just say all things created equal. We have the option to buy physical or digital or both. And I decide I want to buy all physical along with 10,000 other people. I'm the one out of 10,000 where my house burns down and I lose all my physical media. Guess what happens? The other 9,999 are still protected by all the niceties of owning physical media. And I can just, say, you know what? I got homeowners or renters insurance. They may not cover everything, but they'll cover something for loss of those things. In that extremely rare scenario, guess what happens if your PS5 catches on fire and it has 10,000 worth of digital games? The insurance company would tell you to go fuck yourself.
And
to get the money back on those games.
And you can re-download those games provided, and this is where I was going to go. It's not so much the PlayStation burning down. It's the fire analogy is a broad revocation of your licenses to play games.
Yeah, I should have went there instead.
Publisher goes out of business. Sony doesn't want to re-up Sony doesn't want to pay the fee to have the license again. We just lost 500 movies.
I was going to bring that up. Where's the link?
We just lost 500. You put the link down.
There it is. I got it. Yahoo. So Sony is removing over 500 movies, whether or not you paid for them.
If you are a digital-only collector, that is the equivalent of a fire burning your collection, and you don't have insurance on that. It's just fucking gone.
You have zero recourse. I see this all the time for even someone, hey, I bought a movie on Amazon. I can't even access anymore. What? You have zero rights as a digital owner. You have no recourse. You click that wrap end user license agreement. You sign away your rights. You are done. You're done.
And I think that's important here is that as an idiot who oftentimes signs my rights away for digital convenience on a file or something, you have to be able to see the other side of this.
Yes.
This is not a you cannot have a self-centered viewpoint on this because
I'm
it's
not
going to
saying-
affect you anyways.
I'm not saying you can't have digital stuff. I would never say that. Choice is what makes the world goes around. But you have to see what this is doing. They are forcing you to be basically a corporate slave for the remainder of you wanting to consume that media, because you cannot transfer it, you cannot sell it, you can't trade it for a loaf of bread. You are stuck with it forever. You are a prisoner of their ecosystem.
Well, you're stuck with it forever until they decide that you're not allowed to have it
You're stuck
anymore.
for it forever if the servers are still on to play it. And yes, you could say, well, Pat, even if it's on a disc and you are required to get it from a server somewhere, this was what I would say to that. Yes, there are cases where that is entirely true.
Lots of cases, but
you still have something where you own the license in theory, and that's something that can be collected. It can be put on a fucking, you can use it to build a birdhouse out of the cases. You can do something with it, and then maybe in the foreseen future, maybe it pulls it from a fucking, something gets hacked somewhere, and the files get pulled from a server somewhere. The point is like, you have that license still.
Well, that goes back to what I said
Legally.
early on.
Legally.
Like, even if the game exists, even if it's a key that unlocks the download,
It's a license you have.
you can still, that is your license that you can hold on to and transfer to someone else.
Yes.
As long as they keep it up running on their end.
Yes.
But it's still different than owning the digital good because it's in your power to give that to someone else.
There might be a few.
sell it.
They're working on PS5 emulation right now. It's not on the docket. There might be a far-flung future where they figure out how to, like, okay, if you have that Concord disc or the servers are gone, we have a way for you to download them in the future, Ian, on your hacked console to play it. Like, there's ways around some of this stuff that, unfortunately, with the ESA, they don't give a shit to helping, which is part of this argument as well. The point is that, you know, we have to think about things a little bit more than what we are. One of the only other arguments I've seen in favor of just getting rid of all physical, again, this isn't the majority, this is the loud minority, is that, well, it's like 85% of PS5 sales have been digital. You keep saying that 85%. The good old, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics comes up.
Yes.
That 85% that you see bandied about, or 80%, that isn't a figure of choice of you have the same game physical or digital. 85% of the people will buy the digital and only 15% will buy the physical. No. They're throwing that all into one large pot that includes all the digital games that have no physical release.
Yep.
Which skews the number greatly.
Hugely.
Because there's like so many games that are smaller games that don't have boutique, you know, limited run releases or whatever, super rare game releases.
Well, and
so
to that, a lot of those games that do get the physical releases too, they get them later, months later, and sometimes a year later than the digital release. So you're obviously going to have more people buy digital when the game is released.
there's a rumor, speaking of that, with GTA 6, they're thinking, okay, it's going to come out later on physical. Like, who's going to wait after waiting 13 years, 14 years, wants to wait an extra 3-4 months to play GTA 6?
Right.
Or even a month. You're gonna be like, that's crazy. That's crazy. So they're trying to, like, push this fact. But there are some, I try to do some research about, well, first of all, this is from late 2024. There was insidergaming.com said that at that point, a year and a half ago, that the physical disc editions of PS5, this is before, I guess, some of the newer versions that got rid of about 82% of the sales to that point had disk drives, which showed that, okay, the majority of people did have them. When you drill down into some of these games that have come out, yes, there are ones, according to this, there's like analytics sites that have looked at this stuff. There's like insider leaks of some of this stuff. 007 First Light, supposedly to this point, 21% has been physical. That's not nothing. 21% is still a lot multiplied out. Resident Evil Requiem, 28% physical. This is a bad one, I have to admit. EA Sports, only 12% physical. But there's other ones that are higher. Ghost of Yotei, 35% physical. Uncharted 4, 83% physical. Again, a lot of these are from internal leaks, so it's hard to know for sure.
Right. And some of these games do, I think, to me at least, naturally make more sense as a digital product. Sports games notoriously have awful resale value.
Yes.
Awful resale value, and they are released once a year. And people mostly want to play them online and jump in and out of them. That's always an instance where a digital makes sense, and the data shows that, but that's one very specific type of game that is that way because of its yearly release schedule and the fact that resale value is shot to shit immediately.
I'll do a few more because these are in positive for physical. Again, you have to trust the sources of these and the leaks. Sackboy Big Adventure, 75% physical. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, 75% physical. Spider-Man, one of the only fucking exclusives, 60% physical. Last of Us Part 2, 61% physical. Bloodborne, 59% physical. Ghost of Tsushima, 51%. The point is this. And Thor Ragnarok was 2-to-1 physical to digital by mid-2023. So 66%. So even if you say, if you take all the ones that are available physically, and you say, you put it in a blender, let's just say it's 40%. We'll be generous or conservative. It's 40% physical. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people. This isn't like 5% of people.
You could show me that all the games were split 35 physical and the
65?
65 digital. And that still, to me, would not be any sort of justification or reasonable argument.
It's crazy. So that's a small point that I didn't see people really drilling down. Again, you have to trust that. Sony's reasoning, we went over that a little bit. This is from a tweet that goes into, they want to make 15 to 20% more. So let's get into some of the things I didn't see people discussing. Ian kind of brought up before. This affects not just the consumer, it affects a lot more. It affects your pipeline, it affects marketplaces, it affects the future of how people game. So if you are outright eliminating physical media for your console, and you're not allowing Limited Run to have their smaller releases that are curated, super rare games, strictly limited, there's like 6 or 7 of them. You are, and those are not small audiences, by the way, overall, when you put them all together. Some of those games sell tens of thousands, physical. You are eliminating smaller developers and talent they're dying at the vine. They're dying because they don't even get a chance to ply their craft and get enough income to keep going. Because a lot of these folks, if it was just digital, they wouldn't survive. There'd be no audience. There's no curation. It's hard to market digital only. You have to know the right influencers, or, you know what I mean, get lucky like on Steam. It just doesn't exist. With physical, it's a different marketplace outside of digital. That's gone. I know someone personally that did a game. They've done like 2 or 3 digital games. They straight out said, hey, Pat, if it wasn't for physical sales of the first game, there would be no second game. It wouldn't exist.
Sure. Right.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, because, and I'm going to talk almost positively here about some of the boutique publishers, but a game that is picked up by a boutique publisher automatically gets a certain level of exposure, which translates to sales. And when you are an independent developer, the additional 10 to 20,000 sales is, that's the money that allows you to live, that allows you to make the next game.
Yeah.
Not to mention that these are the games that you can actually own.
Yes, you can get the disc with everything on it.
When you get the disc or the game with everything on it, you are actually owning it, and you're not just trading away a license that can be taken away. You're not just selling it. Yeah. You have a real, tangible game in your hand, and that goes back to everything I said about word of mouth, lending, reselling. You're eliminating the exposure to those games by doing that.
Yeah, and then who knows? Maybe that little publisher becomes a bigger publisher, because all these big publishers start as little publishers.
Right.
So you are destroying you're basically your minor leagues, your farm systems.
Yes.
You're just getting rid of them. You're now expecting everything to run in a certain place, in a certain marketplace, and guess who controls that marketplace? Sony controls that marketplace.
Yep.
They're going to decide what games they push and what they don't. Yes. There's no more democracy at all.
Right.
It's gone.
Yep.
I don't think enough people have brought that up from what I've been seeing, but you're not going to have the choices you had before. It's going to be very tough for you to find those games that you would have bought 5 years ago on a physical. On a sort of like, good luck finding them on your own. Good luck.
You and I have talked about this off podcast, but to go back to my statement about games that you can physically own, indie games, some AA games, games that literally come on the disc, ready to go. You are damaging your inroads into rural areas, emerging markets, by places with less robust internet,
the military,
access, the military,
millions of people in this country alone.
Right. Video gaming, modern video gaming is not just AAA games. No. It's all the games. And honestly, so much of modern gaming is actually kind of, to me, a pleasant refocus on the little games that people can make. We've kind of gotten over this whole need to chase, well, AAA hasn't, but in a lot of ways, we're not chasing graphics anymore. We're at where we're at. We can do what we want to do. So here's all these games, and we're not just worrying about access to AAA games. It's everything. So places without internet, you're screwed.
That's a lot of places in the U.S. though. Not to go back to this documentary that I invested in and helped produce. They talk to the stores that are in the sticks, out in Indiana, out in the middle of the country, where like they will never, some areas of the country, have high speed, fiber level internet to download in hundreds of gigabytes.
Right.
It'll be impossible. They have to bring their consoles to the store to get the upgrades, the software to plug in.
Sure.
There's some countries that are either still developing, we always talk about, parts of Africa, India, where there's like 2 billion people, where it might be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years before a lot of those countries get stable internet, parts of those countries. So what you are doing if you are Sony, Ian, is you're saying, we don't want to be in those markets. They don't matter to us.
Right. We
don't care. We'll make our 15 to 20% more off of our current customer base, and the future customer base, be damned, we don't care about them. And before you say that, well, Pat and Ian, these games are getting larger, they're getting, you can't fit them on a disc anyway. Well, they're already like patenting and doing new technology, compression technology for digital distribution. Why not throw that on a disc? Why not throw it on 5 discs? There were PlayStation games, Ian would tell you, had 4 fucking discs 30 years ago. Oh, yeah. Why can't you have 4 PS5 discs? You can do it. Discs are cheap. I'm tired of these excuses when it comes to this.
But then, that does go back to what I said too. Modern gaming is not just huge multi-gigabyte games.
Yes,
that is cutting out a whole lot of the hobby.
But even for them, though, you can find solutions.
Oh, sure.
Let's not pretend. That you could, even in emerging markets, have a 1.5 sent out to customers there. If I was Nintendo or Microsoft at this point in time, all you got to do is say, we're not abandoning physical media for at least the next generation. We're going to support this, especially with Nintendo, with those little discs that are probably, cheaper eventually. The cards will come down eventually, the cards where they can, for the most part, fit a lot of stores in that, hopefully in the future. Well, like terabyte ones or 256 gig ones that's probably not be hard to do that in the future.
But I mean, Nintendo's already been making that push to digital, where they're not having anything on the card anymore. It's a key card that locks the download. My hope is that other companies, I have no faith in Microsoft at this point. We talked about that, but companies would look at the backlash that Sony has just received and maybe fucking pump the brakes a little on whatever they're thinking about doing to eliminate physical sales. Because I guarantee you, all the companies are thinking about it. They're all thinking about how to control your game collection going forward.
They don't want you to be able
so they can make the most money. Yeah. They don't want you to own anything.
They don't want you to own anything. They don't want you to be able to trade it. They don't want you to be able to sell it. They want you locked in. I'm sorry, India only has 1.47 billion people in it. So what you're saying is in 10, 20 years, we don't care about that market. We don't give a shit. I don't see how you can run a business and do that. That's literally short-term profit over long-term. You're just going to give up or let Nintendo take it over? I guess they are.
But I mean, that's been the case since the pandemic, though. Everyone thought there was infinite growth, and everyone sacrificed long-term profit at the altar of short-term profit.
You run out of the people that you're currently serving. You got to think about 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. They're not. They don't care. So that annoyed me. Not enough people brought that up to me. Oh, by the way, Sony can delete your account in games after 3 years, apparently.
Yeah, that made me really nervous because I don't know the last time I fired up my PlayStation 4, and I'm not buying a PlayStation 5.
If you don't use your PS5 for 3 years, your games are getting fucking deleted. This from Shitpost Rock. It's closing your account. You may close your account by contacting us using the details of Section 28. If you have not used your account for at least 36 months, we may take steps to close it. In that case, we will contact you via the email address registered to your account and give you 6 months to either log into your account or contact us and tell us to keep your account open. I don't know. What if that goes to spam? You don't have access to that email anymore. A lot of bad things can happen. A lot of bad things.
That is definitely something that sounds like it should be illegal, but is not.
Account closure is irreversible. There you go. You can't go to the online services or use a digital product purchase for that account. I'm just waiting for the positive of digital. I'm just like, can you give me... Oh, by the way, Ian, those games are going to be cheaper. Oh, no, they're not. We're going to charge you the same price for digital only. Even Nintendo will charge you cheaper on some of their digital only games.
Oh, Nintendo is real bad about that. And their
they
sales
have.
I mean, they have it, but so has Sony and so has Microsoft. The problem is you have to rely on them to give you that sale.
Yes.
And that sale is never going to be as cheap as a used copy of
By the way, in the digital only world, there's no sales anymore. They'll tell you what price to spend. Target, you can't wait for that Target Black Friday sale anymore. It's gone.
Right.
You can't wait for the GameStop, buy 2 get 1 special. That's not happening. You're not going to get that. Well, Ian, if you trade in a console and some games, you're going to give you games. No, that infrastructure is fucking gone.
And then I can hear some people saying, well, Steam manages to have lots of sales. Steam's volume is so much greater than anything that Sony or Microsoft can hope to obtain. And that volume is what allows them to put the games on sale.
And Steam is privately run, so they can do whatever the fuck they want.
That is also true.
Sony is not. Microsoft is not. So, okay, am I losing? Yeah, going back to the cultural artifact thing we brought up before. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I will. Let's talk about how this affects gaming history. You can make a pretty easy argument, that physical media is responsible for the rise of, the study of, the formation of video game history. If there was not physical media 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when me and Ian are plucky teenagers trying to say, you know what, Ian, let's go back and try to, play the stuff we had from our childhood. We would, if we weren't able to, we don't seek out any sort of information or try to collate with others these things that exist. There's no way to do it easily. There's no way to compare with people. Hey, what did you find? I found this, you found that. That doesn't exist.
Well, and I oftentimes shit all over nostalgia, but it without a physical item to rediscover, it's very hard to get people interested perhaps in old series, old games, because it's all controlled by what you see.
Yes.
We've seen lots of, old video game series come back and flourish, but would we still be getting sequels to something like Metroid if we were not always able to go back and play prior Metroids?
If you didn't have that Super Metroid on the shelf, if you didn't have the Game Boy cart, if you didn't have the NES cart, as a reminder, as a way to, even if you didn't play it all the time, hey, that's Metroid, that's Samus.
And using Nintendo is maybe a bad idea, but this is a bigger problem for someone like Sony, who does not really care about keeping old stuff available.
Because now you're relying on if the publisher controls distribution, they control when, Ian, you can buy things, when you can't. You're relying on them to control the culture and history of the console. It's all siloed now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no environment where you can have if I'm a 5-year-old kid, Ian, I'm growing up with a PS5 or PS6 5 years from now. How the hell are they going to look back 20 years in the past?
How can I rediscover these games if Sony's not doing it?
I could maybe get the HD remaster that I'm buying for the 3rd time.
Right.
But that's not even the game I played anymore. It's a fucking mess because the corporations have no inclination or they have no need because they're not making money off of historical, keeping historical records on this stuff.
And I want to go back again to the difference between computer and console. In that, computer games have managed to do that, but they don't have physical. It's because the computer is an open system.
It's open.
And you can go find that game again online.
I can still
download it.
I can play. I own a physical Unreal Tournament, but if I lost that today, I can download it. Illegally or legally, I could get it again. Good Old Games is great with that too. It's like just download, you keep it forever, put it on 3 different hard drives, you're good. It's not going to be obsolete.
And emulation for consoles is a good option too, but you can't do that with every console. You never can. And that's still an extra step that a lot of people aren't willing to take.
No. The casual person, for a lot of people, we always talk about, like, we're not the audience, like, we're not the entire audience. Casual people, why do you think a lot of people were, like, shocked that the NES Classic Edition did the numbers it did? I said, I'm not shocked by that.
Right.
Because a lot of casual folks want that easy solution. I pay $60, I plug it in, it gives me my 40 games, and I'm happy. Like, that's it. That's how they want to experience that. So besides Sony deleting your account, Ian, what if they hack your account? Has this happened to you before?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened to me. I talked about it on a previous episode, and they literally said that my account had been hacked, and if they did not find in my favor looking into it, my options were to eat nearly $1,000 in charges or do a chargeback. And they said point blank, we will delete your account and there will be no reactivation. So
you were screwed one way or the other.
I was screwed, yeah. And luckily they found in my favor, but they don't always. There's horror stories online about that. And the way they worded it was that they weren't going to find in my favor. They were very like...
they don't want to promise anything, legally probably.
Right, but it was...
like me, my credit card charges. Yeah.
So then, all gone. Everything.
So the reason I bring this up, and the reason we brought this story last time is because... Colin Moriarty, former game journalist, he's probably still game journalism technically, has Sony, PlayStation podcasts, very big in the space. He had his account fucked with. And someone like Colin probably had several $1,000s worth of games if he's digital only, for like whatever, we'll say like 10 years.
I certainly did, yeah.
And so it made the rounds on social media. We said the situation sucked. Because they didn't have any safeguards in place. We talked about how it was kind of public, how you can go about, getting the phone call and establishing identity to get it. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
That it could even occur. So Colin weighed in on the digital-only Sony future. And I'm not here to attack him personally. I want to talk about his comments because he's very pro-digital and, one of these folks that is like, bring on the digital, let's do it. Like, I'm already in the ecosystem, Ian. This is the wave of the future. Mm-hmm. So he started off this clip I'm going to show in a second. But he did say, like before in a tweet, like a majority of its audience, I don't care if PlayStation supports physical media. First of all, I don't know how he's speaking for everyone when we went over the numbers before.
Sure.
With like, hey, 50% of this game, physical media, 30%, 60%. You can't do that. And even if you are a majority, like, there's still millions of people. This isn't a mob. You can't just direct those people and rug pull them, which I didn't get into that much. You're rug pulling the people mid-generation, technically. Yes. You're not. If I bought a PS5, Ian, last week, saying I want to buy a bunch of discs, and now I find out a year and a half from now, all the games after that I can't, I'll feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm not bought into your ecosystem for several $100s. This is not what I signed up for. The fact that they couldn't wait for the new console, probably because they were scared, because they knew that it would destroy their right.
Interest. They're introducing it now while people already have it. Yeah. So hopefully by the time the new console rolls around, that won't be a negative impact. Like Microsoft tried to do.
Yes. Remember the DRM in 2013? The fucking they reversed that course
immediately.
So anyway, so Colin said in a tweet, then I'll play the clip. He said, rather, the question is, how will Sony improve and solidify its digital presence? From ownership to accessibility to security, fixing PSN as a whole ball game. So here's the clip I'm going to play here now. I'll get your comment on it. Well, it's about a minute and a half here.
Right. We've now known, I would say with certitude, for 20 years since Xbox Live. Not even the original Xbox Live. Let's say Xbox 360's launch with a true digital ecosystem. Remember, you used to have to have a disc to buy games on Xbox Live, which is funny. So we've known for 20 years, 21 years. And it seems unforgivable that there is no solution from the companies. And we have to remember that sometimes the threat of government interference makes the industry act in a certain way. The ESRB is a great example of that. The government basically said, you either figure this out or we'll figure it out for you. That's the exact same threat that they gave to the movie industry in the 70s. So rated R and all that kind of stuff comes from. The ESRB spawns in the early to mid 90s out of a threat for the government to get involved. And I wonder if it's going to be, there will require another threat for the consortium of hardware manufacturers to get together and say, like, we can't do this to people's digital libraries anymore. And that, in fact, because we have this fucking bullshit in our EULAs and all these things where we can pull plugs and ban you and allow your accounts to get stolen, all this bullshit, like, and we have no accountability for it, it undercuts our ability to go all digital, which behooves us. So, in fact, do you think it would benefit them to say, like, yes, we agree with you. Like, you're absolutely right. Please buy digital games. Please buy them. We will do anything. We will promise you access and do all these things, but they don't. And so that's the biggest surprise to me, Chris, is that they make their jobs so much harder when really just a little bit of investment in the back end, in your security apparatus, in licensing, in doing all the hard work sets you up for a dominant digital future where no one is worried and no one gives a fuck.
Okay. So on the surface, Ian, I think those sentiments are, by and large, reasonable.
Yeah, they are.
Like, these companies, they haven't set up the safeguards. They haven't set up the licensing transferring. They've done fuck all in terms of making any sort of viable transition to an all digital world a good prospect.
Yes. And I don't know that the companies, I don't feel like the companies will do that, nor do they really have any incentive to at this point.
That's my issue.
And I think, as he stated, what is going to make them do that? But I don't think there's anyone in this hyper-focused capitalistic current day that we live in that is going to do anything for this. So the company, unforced, the company does not have any benefit to doing that.
Making those investments.
Yes.
That's the thing, and I'm saying I'm not trying to come out harsh in the criticism, but I think in this day and age, in 2026, it is naivete to think that these large corporations that are publicly traded will do anything but the bare minimum to make short-term profit and care anything more than they have to about consumer concerns when it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
If Colin was not who Colin is, with a large audience and a popular podcast, what happens if he complains to Sony about his account being hacked? Does he get the same attention? What happens if he's like someone else, Ian, where they decide, you know what, I don't think that this was compromised, we're not going to give you your account back.
Right.
The fact that it even happened at all, Colin, makes it seem cute to suggest that they are going to make these investments when they haven't for the past 15 years when they could have. They've had all the time in the world to do this. It doesn't behoove them to, because they can't make money investing in this stuff. They don't make money setting up a system with easy license transfers for digital. They don't want you to be able to do it, because then you can't spend money on the same game 2 years from now or on the next console. We can't pretend they have any interest in heart for the consumer at this point. They don't.
It's dangerous at this point to assume any sort of benevolence on.
You can't assign that to a corporation. What are we, crazy? You're in their ecosystem. You're bought and sold. Remember the cartoons, Ian, where like, they capture Bugs Bunny or someone, they tilt you upside down by your toes and the coins would drop out.
Yes.
That's what happens if you're digital only.
Yeah.
You can't leave the ecosystem. You're invested.
Right. So we can't take away physical media when we cannot trust them to do the right thing. Because the right thing does not exist in a corporate world.
And you think there's going to be laws passed in this country at least?
Not at the moment.
Maybe Australia or Europe, which they seem to have a much better, they seem to be doing some laws for consumers here and there. They seem to be like, okay, Apple, you got to put the USB-C on. What the hell you're doing? Stop trying to sell your proprietary shitty lightning cable. They can get things done. But in this country, you think there's going to be laws passed anytime soon with the ESA lobbying, with all the corporate donations and fucking PACs and things of that nature and lobbyists? You think they're gonna come out and decide? When's the last time there's been a landmark consumer sort of decision made on this sort of scale?
Well, it's interesting because he does mention the ESA as being an example of what he would hope to see, which is where the government has to come in and say, hey, we're going to do something if you don't do it. So that's how the ESA came about with ratings and things. But now the ESA is part of the problem.
Yeah, the ESA doesn't want digital. We can't get a fucking digital library through the ESA.
Right. All you have to do is go look at the Video Game History Foundation struggles with dealing with the ESA. And
you think the ESA is going to allow for digital transfer of licenses or for me to like be able for Ian to borrow my digital game? You really think that's going to happen? Not a chance in hell this is going to happen. And again, in a perfect world with people that run the corporations that care about this stuff, yes, maybe these things could happen, Ian. But they're already, Ian, saying fuck you to the current people that own their physical console. And they're already calculated out, Ian, well, acceptable losses, Ian, if we lose this percent of customers, we're going to make that profit back by getting 15 to 20% more for digital. They don't care about losing customers. They don't care about losing you. And so that's why if we sound like crazy people, which I hope we do, but someone has to ring the alarm to be like, listen, you have to assume the very, very worst scenario is going to happen here because all the evidence is pointing to that.
Yeah.
The fact that they announced this without anything, like the thing that Microsoft is supposedly going to try to do is like, well, you can load up your old, Xbox One disc to get the digital license. They didn't announce anything like that, Sony. There's nothing in place. There's nothing to tell us that they will ever do anything like that. Because it doesn't make them money.
Right.
And to say it behooves them, we fucking talked about Roblox 6 months ago. The fact that they don't have, like, basic boundaries in place and a robust anti-child predator system. And you think Sony's going to give a shit about...
I think we're getting a little off the rails.
But you see what I mean, though?
Yes. Yeah.
Something a lot more serious than digital ownership.
Right.
And they're not doing that. So, like, what are we talking about here? It's silly. Discoverability's gone. Collecting's gone. 20 years from now, you think there'd be someone making a guide to the PS5 library? I don't. There's not going to be any collecting scene, let alone the mom and pop shops will be gone. That, again, that's brought up in the documentary. Sony could literally do nothing, piss off everyone, but if enough people just bend over the barrel and take it, it's not going to matter unless we yell and rage about it. And unless the next console comes out with no digital option, and all the 82% of the people that bought this...
No physical option?
I'm saying no physicals. So if the 82% that bought the physical, if enough of them are pissed off, if there is a PS6 and don't buy the PS6 digital only, then they might reverse course. By you hit them in the wallet, that's the only thing that happens. You cannot hit them in the wallet by being digital only. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, actually.
There's no way to hit them in the wallet. You've given them your wallet.
Right.
You can't take anything back. It's done. It's a shame.